whoever's singing it and expressing the sentiments in that song is really connecting with their feelings. And in this instance, it's feelings of grief. And I just want to, bring that up because as much as we honor and respect and love those who have served our country, are serving our country now, and especially those who have given their life so that we can live here with the freedoms and the beautiful land that we have here. There's grief and there's anxiety and there's sadness. So we do want to honor that within ourselves. Because the reading that June did a few minutes ago starts out with peace in the world and ends with peace in ourselves, right? Well, actually, the peace starts within ourselves. So if we want to have peace in the world, it starts here and it radiates out. And if all 7 point whatever billion people in the world lived in that space of peace in the heart, we would have peace in the world. We would respect each other. We would love each other. We would resolve conflicts peacefully and lovingly. But we don't know how to do that yet quite, at least not in the political realm and the international realm and the national political scene and all of that, right? We're still learning. But those of us here in this room believe in that. And we come here every Sunday and we go to classes and we do our spiritual practices to remind ourselves to live in that place and to practice being, really just being that divine presence within ourselves. And I had a reminder this week. Yesterday I got a text from my sister-in-law, and it really jolted me, and it really brought forth in a very poignant way for me and for my family how important this day is, because my brother's son, my nephew, is in the Army, and he's stationed in Venice. And he had a bit of a mishap this week. He was parachuting out of a plane doing training exercises, and the parachute didn't open. And he free-falled for about 25 seconds, and there's a reserve parachute. So that opened, or he opened it. I don't know how that works. But it just really stopped me short. I realized that this day today for my family could be very different than what it is. I just started reflecting on this young man. He's 20 years old, and he's an Eagle Scout. And when he was in high school, my brother had to really be on top of him to do all of his projects. I mean, he was just a very recalcitrant teen. He was in his own head and didn't really, wasn't connected with what he was doing in terms of, the steps he needed to take to be an Eagle Scout. But his brother's an Eagle Scout, and my brother was very involved with Boy Scouts at the time. So, of course, he had to be an Eagle Scout. So he finally did it. He became an Eagle Scout. He did this wonderful public service project in his community. And at the time, he was in high school, and I didn't know this, and I think his parents found it out later. He was in touch with a recruiter from the Army. So he was talking to this recruiter, and my brother and sister-in-law are talking to him about going to college and da-da-da-da-da, and he kept resisting. I don't want to go to college. So they got him to agree to go to community college and stay home, but it was very reluctantly that he agreed to that. Well, finally it came out. He wanted to go in the Army. So that was his calling. He was inspired by that. So that's where he is, and he's loving it. He loves every minute of it. So that's his service. And we all have that calling. We all have that inspiration deep within ourselves, right? About what our calling is. I'm standing here today because of that. And this is not something I had pictured for myself, but here I am. And I feel good about it. So fortunately, but the divine brings forth whatever it brings forth within all of us, within each of us, and that's our service, right? So, so I want to talk about service a little bit today too, because in many of the spiritual traditions, service is a way. It's really a path to awakening. And what is awakening, or what is enlightenment? It's living in this world, but not of it. That's a retreat that Anne runs. Living in this world, but not of it. But I think Jesus said that at one time, didn't he? Yeah. So how do we do that? How do we live in this world of chaos and conflict and confusion, emotional turmoil, war? How do we do that and remember with every step we take that we are that divine presence, that we are the love that is the true spiritual connection with all that is. And that's what our spiritual practices are about, right? And we all have our individual callings. So this is mine standing right here, and my nephew is over in Venice doing training exercises, and we're all aware, everyone in my family is aware that he could be called into service in the Middle East at any moment, because his unit was notified about 6 months ago for that. And it never happened so far. So we're grateful. So there's a lot of gratitude in our family right now that he's vibrant and healthy and happy, really happy, in service. So, what is service? Ram Dass, in one of his books, and I can't remember the name of it, but he talks about how service really can lead us to that connection with oneness with all of us, right? And, we see that demonstrated. All of us, or most of us in this room, know Bhante, right? And we see how Bhante lives his life. He is in service to humankind. And he is a powerful, deeply spiritual being. And when he comes here and talks to us, he talks to us about a spiritual practice or a spiritual inspiration, an inner knowing, right, from the Buddhist philosophy. But when he leaves here, he might get on a plane and go to some conflict-ridden or disaster-ridden part of the world and do community service, whatever calls to him. He doesn't talk about that a lot. He teaches to us and really inspires us spiritually. But we all know that he lives his life in every moment serving other beings in the world, right? And we can do that too, just in our daily lives. The Kabbalah also talks about service. And it really, I think in the Kabbalah, I'm not an expert in it, but the bit that I have studied about the Kabbalah, service is the main path to awakening, to enlightenment, to knowing the truth of who we are. So what is service? It's connecting with another being, and it doesn't have to be a human, but for most of us it is. For me, it's people and animals, nature, trees. It's really giving forth from our heart and connecting from within to all other beings, whatever they are, whomever they are. I had a thought and it just flitted out of my mind. But Mother Teresa is coming into my mind. She lived a life of service, right? There are many books written about her, but like Bhante, she lived her service, right? She lived it. Every tradition, I think, every spiritual tradition. I woke up this morning and I thought about a story that I learned when I was in Catholic school. We studied Father Damien. Anybody heard about Father Damien? He was a priest. I think he was a Catholic. Well, he must have been a Catholic priest. I was in Catholic school. So in Hawaii, and he was inspired or asked to go to an island called Molokai and take care of the lepers there and serve them. And apparently they had no services. They had no form of structure or discipline in their lives. They were just isolated from the general community when they contracted leprosy and were put together there on this island. And he went there and spent his life there. And he ultimately contracted leprosy also and died. But that's the ultimate service too, right? So that's from the Christian tradition. And I read recently, just this week, accidentally, I think it was a program on TV up in Alaska, and there's a remote tribe of indigenous people, and there was a priest there named Father Andrew, and he was from the Eastern Orthodox tradition, and he moved to an island. He had been brought there by a corporation or a military structure or something as a religious person to really minister to the native people, because the corporation that was there at the time, whatever they were doing business-wise, they were really using the native people as slaves, practically. And so he was brought in to really minister to the natives. And he ended up moving to an island too, and people flocked and followed him. But he spent years and years ministering to the local people there, and he's revered to this day. People still pilgrimage to this island where he spent his final years. So, there's every tradition has service. We look at, Nelson Mandela, we look at Gandhi, in the political human realm. There's so many of us that do service, and all of these people, each and every one of them, we can look at them and know that they are somehow connected in their heart to the divine presence, and they are following their inner guidance. So when we do have that connection, and each of us has that ability to do that, we know how to do that. We do it through prayer, the first 2 steps of prayer in particular, right? Or meditation does the same thing. I mean, the first 2 steps of prayer really are meditation, right? When we go into that place in our heart, we are connecting with the divine. And from there, all we need to do is open our heart and listen, right? And when we listen, inspiration comes through. And I know that's what my nephew did. He didn't know he was doing that, obviously. He was filled with such passion and such drive that he did what he needed to do, but Spirit was talking to him in some way, right? And we all know that feeling. The more we do that, the more connected we are in our lives, and the more peaceful we are. And that's really the message for today, going back to that Lao Tzu reading. How do we find peace in our heart, right? We find peace in our heart by being in our heart. And often there's a lot of turmoil in our hearts, isn't there? All right? I was feeling turmoil yesterday morning when I got that text from my sister-in-law. I felt anxiety, because I was reminded of the fragility of the life of my nephew, that he lives in an environment where he could be called into service at any moment and lose his life, or be living in an area of conflict. And he's not in that situation right now, and something could have happened. So anxiety was rising up within me, and I really had to stop and center myself and connect with those feelings that I have within my heart of feeling nervousness and anxiety, not only for my nephew, but for my family. If something happens to a member of any family, it affects everyone. And I think we all have had that experience, right? We all know that. Everything shifts, everything changes. So that was coming up for me yesterday morning. So where does peace start? It starts with us really connecting with the human aspect of ourselves. And when we look at conflict, just interpersonal conflict in our daily lives, say between 2 people in a family or in a work situation, it's oftentimes because people aren't really connecting with what's going on inside of them. They're not sitting down in a contemplative kind of way and saying, or maybe journaling, whatever it might be, to help us connect with our feelings and say, what am I feeling right now, and why am I feeling this way? How can I be truly honest with myself to know what I'm feeling right now? And if we can do that, if we can really go into our heart, for me what happens is I feel this energy of discord. It starts moving through me. I actually feel it somatically in my body. It moves through my arms, it moves through my legs. And after a few minutes, I find peace. It's like, oh, that's what it was. I was worried, was worried that something might happen to my nephew and he might not be here anymore, and my whole family would be just thrown in chaos. All right, and I've experienced that, so I know what that's like. So connecting with our inner selves, our human selves, I think is the first step in really finding peace. And once we know our own feelings, then we can remember the truth of our being. I am a divine child of God. God meaning all that is, not the external idea of God, but the God within me, the God within you. And I see that. I love the greeting in India, namaste, right? It's such a powerful greeting. The spirit in me, the recognition that I am the divine being, sees the spirit in you, right? I recognize that, and I am telling you that I see you. I see the truth of who you are. Not this person standing before me that's doing something and has a certain name and has a certain role in the life. I see you as the truth of your being. And that's who I am, and I see that in you, and we are one. We are one, and we are the same. If we can all do that, then the prophecy that June read to us from Lao Tzu, that can really come true, one being at a time, right? So just having gratitude that we have choices in our lives and we have knowledge and experience that we can actually bring ourselves to that place, right? Because when I was a child, I was 7 years old, and we had a death in the family, and it was my 4-month-old brother, right? I was 7, so I was a caregiver for him, helping my mother. And I look back today, and I can see the changes in my family that brought about. As a child, I didn't have that awareness, but it changed our family. So just having awareness, just knowing and being grateful for the life we have and the people in our life right here and right now. Feeling that gratitude. So my time here is coming to a close. So I just, I guess in closing, just remind all of us that as we celebrate Memorial Day, because many of us do celebrate, and there's nothing wrong with that. I see posts on Facebook that, we shouldn't have these barbecues and celebrations. We should be in honor and respect to those who have given their lives. And yes, we should have that. Of course, we want to honor each other. But we can celebrate their life, and we can celebrate our lives. So being together with our family over a barbecue is celebrating our life. So celebrate life, honor ourselves, honor each other. Be in touch with our feelings so we can be peaceful within ourselves. And that is the first step to peace in our families, peace in our communities, peace in our nation, peace internationally among nations, and peace in the world. Okay, so... And then connecting with our own inner heart. What is the divine asking of me right now? What am I inspired to do? It's always something wonderful and joyful if we really connect. If we really think about it, it is. So just being in that awareness of, I feel called to do whatever, serving ice cream tonight for dinner. It could be as simple as that. Make each member of my family just happy, because they know I'm always on a diet, but I'm going to do this anyway. It could be anything. Or it could be something as magnanimous as what my nephew is doing right now. So just being aware. All right. So I thank you all today for being here. I honor each and every one of you, and I love you, and thank you. Namaste. Namaste.